Good evening. Welcome. Come on in. I'm your J Divine Martino from Magic 95.5 Urban One. And of course, we welcome you once again to the Voter Education Forum. Tomorrow is the big day. It's a lot of excitement going down. We definitely wanted to come on and speak with you once again, just in case you have any questions about the voting process. And you know, I couldn't do this without my Wonder Twin, so I have to bring her on. Please welcome Stephanie Hightower, President and CEO of the Columbus Circle League. Hi, Stephanie.
Good evening, Divine. Thank you. I like that. You said your sister twin. I'm liking that.
You know it, because we are breaking this information down segment by segment. It's exciting. Tomorrow is the big day. We've been talking about this for quite some time now. Election Day Tuesday. Many people, let me say it this way. Millions have casted their early ballots, their absentee ballots, and went in and early voted. So first of all, shout out to everyone for getting their vote on this year. They have done a tremendous job, more than any other year before, right? They have
That's
been.
right.
It's been very exciting. So, like, how are you feeling about this? Are you anxious? Are you feeling like we might get an answer tomorrow night? Do you think this might linger on? How do you feel?
There have been so many of us who have been intimately engaged in this process. And I've just been excited, Divine, at the fact that young people in particular that I see, they are out. The message of vote for your lives, I think, is really resonating, especially during this year of not only COVID, but the racial injustices and the social justice movement that has been mounted. I believe that our, African Americans, Black and Brown people are going to just have record-setting day at the polls and at the early voting. And I am very optimistic, but we still need to make sure that every vote is out there, that every vote is counted, that you exercise your right to vote, that you feel empowered, and that no matter what, if you have not voted yet, that you will make a plan tonight to get up tomorrow and you will go take care of your business, because all of our lives do depend on what happens tomorrow night.
If you haven't gotten it done yet, please make it a point to speak with your employer. You know, employers do have to give you time off to make sure that you are able to go vote. So we don't want no excuses, okay? But we will move right along, because we have a lot of heavy hitters coming in tonight to speak about the voting process that is going down tomorrow, starting with Franklin County Commissioner Kevin Boyce, one of the, most sincere people I know, very dedicated to his job, and never misses an opportunity to give a little word. So, Commissioner Boyce, welcome.
Hey, Devon, what were you trying to say? Were you trying to say I talk too much? Is that
No,
what
I
you're trying to
say that you are dedicated and we appreciate you.
say? No, thank you so much. Hey, Stephanie, good to see you both.
Hello, Commissioner Boyce. And just let me say, just right off the bat, one of the reasons why we are here tonight and we have this forum is because of the generosity of a lot of people. But the county commissioners have been very supportive of making sure that the Get Out to Vote education forums exist. And so, again, kudos to you, Commissioner Boyce, and to Commissioner O'Grady and to Commissioner Brown for your support in helping us be able to get this message out to our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's what we do. The Franklin County is, we do host the elections every year, and we understand and know how much and how much that means to the community, how important it is for their lives too. You said it well earlier.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what's going down tomorrow, Election Day Tuesday, the general election.
What's tomorrow? I don't even know what's going on tomorrow. Is there an event? Is something happening tomorrow? I don't even know what it is. What is it?
What's your message to the people? What would you tell someone who's still debating whether or not they're going to go stand in that line tomorrow, who still has not voted yet? Why should they go to the polls tomorrow?
Well, first of all, some people just choose to go on election day because they just like the feeling of going on election day. I admit I'm one of those people. I really like the feeling of election day. It's like a holiday or like a birthday or something that is really meaningful. And so for all those folks who waited, I understand. But if you just procrastinated, what I'd say to you is that this is one of those unique moment in times in our life where everything that we do matters for everything thereafter tomorrow. And we are talking about impacting the next generation. We're talking about impacting our quality of life right now. We're talking about continuing this conversation that spurred this summer that I think really has moved the needle in the conversation about race for the first time in probably most of our lifetimes, maybe since the civil rights era. And so, I just, if you can't get motivated to vote in this kind of election, then
Right.
you'll never be motivated to vote. And so, there's still time to do it. If you haven't made up your mind, there's still, I can help you make up your mind. Just call me and I will guide you in the right direction. Promise you on that. Um, I just think that, people are much more tuned in. What we know for sure is that we get these data results every day of turnout
Mhm.
and at the Board of Elections. And I tell you, it's record setting. I mean, it has been
Impressive.
um, a 50% increase
Mhm.
in turnout so far that is just markedly different. So I think that people are aware, people are know. And the last thing I'll say, and then when you're down there, I was in line when I voted last week. I was in line for about an hour and a half, and the line wrapped around the building, wrapped down the street, drove down to Cincinnati, came back to Cleveland. The line was that long, and it was. I'm serious. It felt like I was like I'm on it, like hey, like I mean for real. But I would say this: it was almost like an eerie calm.
Mhm.
People were in line, they were socializing and just being patient, and I didn't hear a complaint the whole day. The whole time I was down there. And so I think that really speaks to the mood of the electorate right now, which is good.
Commissioner Boyce, the thing that I think is important for our listeners and people to understand is your compassion. And so when you are talking about getting out to vote, folks need to know that the county commissioners have made sure that there is funding for those individuals who possibly, and Divine, we were talking about this early on in March and April. They made sure that those people who possibly were getting evicted, that there were dollars there so that they could maintain their rent and their mortgages. Small businesses, especially Black-owned businesses, the county commissioners put money in place to make sure that we would continue, for those businesses to continue, not only Black-owned businesses, but all small businesses in this region. So, Commissioner Boyce, talk about, I think it's important for people to know that you all declared racism as a public health crisis, and why the things that you do are important, and that it's important that people get out to vote to make sure that these kinds of things and services continue to happen with leadership, and leadership is those people that we vote into office.
Well, let me just start by saying, we can't do the work that we do without agencies like the Columbus Urban League. I mean, we see you all as our partners, and so it's easy. We can't even deliver effectively and get the resources to the people who need it most without a conduit like the Urban League. So it's a partnership, and I know you're appreciative of those resources. But when we're internally getting together, my colleagues Marilyn Brown and John O'Grady, and we say we want to get, you know, money out to small minority owned businesses and help them make it through this time. There's just no conversation about where it goes, and that's to the Urban League. I mean, and I think that is a testament to not just the legacy of the Urban League, but your leadership too. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. We declared racism as a public health crisis for a number of reasons. One, for the value proposition that it is. We wanted to say publicly, nationally, and to all those who would listen, this is something that we are going to change. This is something that we recognize, and this is something that we are committed to, and it's part of our value construct. And from that, we can build everything else. But then we connected it to the data and the statistics that you worked with us on from 2018. We started to look at poverty. The number one thing that came back when we started trying to figure out why there were so many orange barrels and cranes in the sky and growth and progress everywhere, yet some neighborhoods, some communities were growing deeply in poverty.
Mhm.
Um, and what we found that the number one factor there was race. And then when you couple that with, health statistics like diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and other chronic illnesses, there is a direct correlation to racism being a factor of public health for individuals of color. And that's something that we have decided to take on in a way that says everything we do, we will do under the value set that racism is a public health crisis and that affects everybody. And so we're going to do our part to change that.
Well,
So
let me
what
ask you,
would you say?
we
Go,
have a
go
question.
ahead. Go ahead.
We have a question in the chat since we're speaking of race. And the question is asking, how can race be a problem when here in Columbus, so many key positions have been held by Black people? What would you say to that?
Uh, well, first of all, we've come a long way. You keep in mind that in 2016, I was elected as the very first African American commissioner in the history of Franklin County. Now, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
We had a Black president of the United States of America before we had a Black county commissioner here in Franklin County. And a lot of the people that you're referencing of people in key positions, yeah, this is a somewhat of a nuance to Central Ohio. African Americans are very much in the minority here in Central Ohio. I mean, it's different in Cleveland. In Cleveland, African Americans are the majority of the city of Cleveland. And Columbus is very reversed, very different. So yeah, we're in key positions, but we've got to work within a system that was built to not support the kind of issues that we're talking about for Black people. And so we're doing our best, but it's like peeling an onion. It's one layer, then there's another layer, and then it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper until we get to its core and really try to undo some things that over time have been built and institutionalized. And that's really what this conversation is about. It's about trying to change institutional racism that holds us back in housing, holds us back in employment, holds us back in procurement and other things that allow people to flourish and thrive. And so, I reject the notion that, yes, we've got Blacks in leadership, in key leadership positions. That's the question. But I reject the notion that that is the end all be all. There is no magic wand. There is no button that we can push. It is a grind that is a painstakingly issue by issue, day by day, argument by argument, a challenge that is going to take some time to unwind, but we can only do it with the support and help of everybody in this community.
Very
So,
well said.
so I want to build on that, and you hit the nail on the head, Commissioner Boyce. When you talk about systemic racism, these are policies that have been put into place for years. This is not just something that happened overnight. And even if you have Black elected officials, they just can't wave a magic wand and say, oh, all of a sudden it goes away. So what do you say to those voters out there, especially Black men, who have been victimized, who have been incarcerated, who are dealing with those social justice issues, who are saying, why should I get out to vote? Because of the question that was just asked. Why does it matter that their vote counts tomorrow in order to begin to make those changes?
Well, I mean, it's simple. Your vote is your voice. And if you don't use it, then you can expect to get the same type of results that have not benefited folks that look like you and I. And so I think, this is one of those times where it's such a clear picture of what that means. Think Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and many, many others. I mean, call the roll and we'd be here all night long. And so it's time to begin the change that we seek with our own actions, and that's the vote. And who better, what better opportunity in an election than the presidential election? Because all policies are driven from that perspective, and from that office. And so this is one of those times in when we have a president. I'm not being political. I'm just saying we have a president who is on one end of the spectrum and another candidate is on another end of the spectrum. And so the selection is easy. I mean, whoever you choose, the selection is easy because it's such a stark contrast. You're not talking about two candidates that look the same, sound the same, talking the same stuff. You're talking about two very different ideologies and perspectives. And this is our chance to weigh in. And I would say to the Black males out there who are disgruntled, discouraged, or really just, not feeling like this election is for them, I would say it is more now than ever. We can be the deciding factor in this election. And I was at a barbershop the other day and somebody said, well, I'm just not voting for either candidate. And I said, well, if you're not voting for either candidate, you're actually voting for the one who will win. I mean, you're voting for you're going to let somebody else win that you may not, that may not have your interest in mind. And so these are the tough kind of conversations, but it's the responsible thing to do is to go out and vote. And that's part of the democratic process. I'm on the ballot tomorrow, and I got to go with what the people say. However that comes out, I will accept that, and that's the way it is. And so that's what it's all about, though, is participating in that process, no matter how it plays out.
Commissioner Boyce, you are on the ballot tomorrow, along with a lot of our state legislators and judges.
Mhm.
And, it's about the presidential election, but it's also about the local election and who we vote into office locally, because that's who determine our rules. What would you say to those out there as far as the local ballot and them making sure that they do go out and vote, not only for the presidential race, but also for our local officials?
Absolutely. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head there because, I mean, so much of your quality of life, your direct quality of life is affected by the people who represent you locally. And I'm thinking of the judges, I'm thinking of county commissioners, I'm thinking of school board members and folks at the local level who really impact your quality of life and, more importantly, maybe even your future. And so, these elections, we get caught up in the presidential race because that's what the news is talking about, and that's what everybody's focused on. But the reality is that even though they drive the public policy that hits us at the local level, the reality is the things that I do as a commissioner, the things that the judges do, will directly affect your life tomorrow. Tomorrow, the decisions that we make to address affordable housing, public transportation, to create jobs, and to invest in neighborhoods, all of those things come at the local level. And so, who represents you matters very much on what that looks like and how it plays out.
I agree with you 100%, Commissioner Boyce. And I will say this, what folks need to understand is inclusion sometimes is a delusion.
Mhm.
And that, when you have African American leaders that sit at the table, that's why it's important for you to know what their track record actually is. And so that's why I pointed out what has been happening at the county commissioner level. We know that they have been supportive and are doing some things to begin to deal with that systemic racism that we talked about, to begin to unlock it so that as Commissioner Boyce or others are in their positions, they can begin to have and make policy decisions that can begin to overturn what we're witnessing today. So I just want to say thank you for coming on tonight, for your words of encouragement, for really being passionate about this work. Being an elected official is no joke anymore. Been there, done that, don't have any desire to do it again. So I really applaud the fact that you are in this and you continue to stay passionate about your work and about being an elected official. And I just thank you and thank all of the county commissioners for the work that you do on behalf not only of Black people, but for everybody in Franklin County. So thank you so much, Commissioner Boyce, for being here tonight and sharing your perspective on why we need to get out to vote tomorrow.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we consider you partners. So thank you so much for having us.
Yes, now we're going to move on. We have actually a brief message from United States Senator Sherrod Brown. Sherrod? Sherrod.
You got
it. Sherrod Brown.
I'm Sherrod Brown. It's an honor to serve you in the United States Senate. Thank you to my longtime friend, Stephanie Hightower. Thank you to the Columbus Urban League, and thank you, Radio One, for inviting me to speak today, and for all the important work that you do across Ohio. I visited Stephanie and the Urban League in Columbus a number of times and seen the incredible things, just broad and deep services you provide to the Columbus community. Everything we know is at stake in this election, from healthcare to housing to real criminal justice reform. We have so much to do. We plan to do it in January and work with Urban League and in Columbus, work with my neighbor in Cleveland, my next door neighbor, Marsha Maccabee is the head of the Cleveland Urban League, work with urban leagues. Ohio's blessed to have, I believe, more urban league chapters, perhaps than any other state. Columbus helps lead the way, and I'm grateful to all of you. Election day is approaching. November 3rd, election day is the last day you can vote, from 6:30 in the morning till 7:30 in the evening. Cast your vote at your designated polling location If you don't know where that is, go to this website to find out. Don't forget to bring a valid ID with you. It could be a driver's license, a passport, a military ID. It can even be a bank statement with your address on it. Don't worry if you see long lines at the polls. Voters will be spread out, so long lines 6 feet apart don't mean what they might have meant another year. And keep in mind, so many people have voted early that the voter turnout has been good. Most importantly, don't let anybody intimidate you or try to intimidate you. It's against the law. It's a felony to threaten people at the polls to try to convince them not to vote. Your vote is your voice in government. You know that. Elections officials all have a plan in place to make sure your ballot can be cast safely and securely and be counted. It's the most important election of our lifetime. I think almost everybody agrees with that. And your vote matters. So if you haven't voted yet, make a plan now. If you have friends that haven't voted, work with them to make a plan also. Share this video with friends and families and neighbors. Most importantly, remind them Election Day itself is their last chance to cast a ballot in such an important election for the future of our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Brown. That was some very important information, some valuable information. Wouldn't you agree, Stephanie?
Absolutely, and especially about the voter intimidation message. That, don't let anybody in any way try to oppress your vote for whatever reason. And we will be giving out more information throughout this broadcast to let people know if, in fact, you just happen to run up on somebody or they run up on you and in any way try to intimidate you not to vote. We have information. All of us, we have phones. You need to take their photo. You need whatever car they're in. Let us know. Call that number, because what we don't want to do is look like we're back in the 1950s and 60s and people are denying us the right to vote. People stood in long lines. They were beaten. They were trampled on to give all of us the right to vote. And it is really incumbent upon all of us to exercise our right, to use our voices, and to go out there and vote for our lives tomorrow.
That's right. Absolutely. Young and old. And speaking of young, we have the young adult chair for the NAACP. Please welcome Stanley Gates. Welcome to the forum.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you, President Hightower and Divine, for having me on tonight.
Hey, Stanley.
Hey.
So tell us why, I'm the old head on the call tonight. You and Divine are the youngsters. And I just want you to really talk to our young people about why it's important for them to get out to vote. We know that there is a legacy of systemic racism in this country. We have seen what happens to young Black men in this country with the criminal justice system. Why is it important, Stanley, for your generation to get out and vote? What are the stakes here?
So, I said this the last town hall, and I definitely believe, and I will be saying it going forward. We cannot say that Black Lives Matter and not use our most basic right to elect those that will support our community, period. We need to use our voice because the opportunity to make change is in front of us and it's attainable. That's why the Columbus branch of the NAACP has done everything from pushing information via social media, doing radio ads, holding candidates forums as well. And then as of yesterday, we took 2 buses of Ohio State students to the Board of Elections to early vote. So we matter and we deserve better policies and funding that support our community. Because the bottom line is, if we have to roll to the polls, take souls to the polls, stroll to the polls, if you're in a Divine Nine organization, we got to look out for our community and make sure people vote. We cannot let transportation or anything else be a barrier and stop us from voting.
Which leads me to my next question. Let me paint the picture for you. I got every intention. I want to vote real bad, right? But my finances don't allow me to have a vehicle. So I don't even know how I'm going to get to the polls tomorrow. What would you say to a person like me?
Well, first of all, for people who are in our generation, we got social media. On Facebook, you have recommendations where you can ask people if you can get a ride to the polls. But outside of that, organizations are also stepping up. They are providing transportation for folks to get to and from the polls. CODA's still offering free rides. Community Development for All People, they are offering rides for folks in the 43205, 06, and 07 zip codes. And then Uber and Lyft are even putting in, and they're offering discounts as well. So for Lyft, you do have to use the 2020 Vote promo code. But again, this goes all back to the importance of making a plan to vote in person or dropping off your completed ballot at the Board of Elections tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. And I think most importantly, we have to make sure that we underscore and emphasize for folks who are going to be in line late after 7:30. If you're in line, you can vote. And if you're annoyed by the line, one thing I want people to keep in mind is that these folks that are keeping you in line, they are going to be on the ballot in 2022. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are annoyed or you feel like you're in line way too long, just keep in mind that the Ohio Secretary, he is going to be on the ballot in 2022.
So Stanley, and I'm gonna say this, Divine. You know what? When we need to get to the club, when you need to get where you need to go, you find a way.
You Uber.
So I don't want to hear anybody talking about I couldn't get no ride. I didn't have no money to get. I'm not. And you know what? It's the first of the month, so I know a whole bunch of people got paid, and you need to take your little coins and make sure that if you need to get a lift or get a taxi or pay somebody that you know has a ride to get you there, but that should not be an excuse. I think more so than anything, I want to talk about what you said earlier, Stanley. If we want to stand around here wearing our Black Lives Matter mask and our Black Lives Matter shirts and have our all of our posters and everything in our windows, this is the one time where we really have to really understand Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And if your life really does matter, then you need to step up. And I'm not, I'm old school. So this is your mama talking to you tonight. I've already threatened mine. Don't vote. You can't live here no more. That's all I did. I'm just telling you.
It's simple. It's simple. You just got to put it like that.
You don't have that sticker on tomorrow and show it to me that you did that. You got to move. Okay. I can't do it because I'm out here fighting for you. Now listen, and your mamas have been fighting for you all these years, and you have a responsibility to your community to get out to vote.
Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the most simple things that we can do. I mean, we go to work every day, we pay our bills. This is the most simple thing that we can do, is to go out and make sure that we show up at the polls, especially Black men. I'm going to continue to be hard on our Black men. We are going to be the difference makers. We have to show up.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit more, Stanley, about the work of the NAACP, because, that's another one of our organizations that we need to make sure that folks understand the historic nature of the NAACP, what it represents, and why you as a young person are actively involved in the NAACP.
Sure. I mean, the NAACP has been around for over a century. The most basic thing that we do is advocate for our people. We are the folks that are calling City Hall and talking to the mayor, talking to the council members and telling them what Black people need. We are talking to state legislator. We are holding folks accountable. That is the most basic way I can put what the NAACP does. And for me as a young person, I'm constantly thinking about, the future. The work that I'm doing is not for me. I may not even see the change that I'm looking for today. But I'm always thinking about my children. I'm always thinking about my cousins and aunts and uncles and trying to make sure that, whatever is happening in the future, what I'm doing today is making a better future for them.
That is extremely selfless, and we definitely appreciate your work. And that is a very great message for younger people, to be able to see someone that looks like them in the same age range as them doing such powerful and mature things. So we definitely appreciate you for that. And we definitely appreciate you stepping in tonight and speaking with us. On behalf of the youngins out there, Mr. Stanley Gates, we appreciate you. And, we did hook up with our folks from over at NBC4, and they sent us a little video that I would like to go to.
What's up, Columbus? It's Kerry Charles from NBC4. Woo, 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 woo. I'm here with Darlene Hill and the one and only Jen Bullock. JB up in this thing. We're here on this day. We just wanted to say a quick hi and hello to everybody, because it's that time of year we've been waiting for, the election, and we know it's coming up and we know you're all talking about it, but we wanted to share why voting is important for all of us. So individually, I'm gonna go first here. I like to think about all of those people who came before us. I think of those like Fannie Lou Hamer, the youngest of 20 children. She was a sharecropper, had very little education, but loved to read. She pushed herself to learn to read. And she took beating after beating, and she fought so much for people to be able to secure the right to vote. And I just think what a shame it is that many people would sit at home and not vote. So I try to make every election municipal and really get involved, not just the general election, because it's so important, Jennifer. I think people get out, do their part, cast a ballot.
And I love that you're thinking about the past. I'm thinking about the future. For me, I vote for my children. I want to leave a better world for them. I want to make sure that they have as much opportunity as everyone else to succeed and excel and live their very best life. So that's why I vote, because I want to leave them in the best hands possible.
And I got a little bit of both of you guys. My parents used to tell my siblings and I, get out and vote because it's your duty, it's your responsibility, and it is your voice. It is your voice. But also, like Jennifer, I do it for my kids. And I tell them right now, vote as if your life depended on it, because it does. I don't care if you vote red, if you vote blue. I don't care if you vote early or if you wait until November 3rd. You got to go out and do it. You got to. This is a beat. You got to vote. If you don't vote, you can't complain.
You know, and full confession, I also do it for the sticker.
Oh, you gotta take the selfie.
That's right.
You gotta brag about it.
So we hope you all get out, votes, and we hope you will join us election night. We're gonna be here all evening.
All night,
on
right
NBC4.
here. That's it. See you then,
That's it. See you then, guys. We got a crew over at NBC4.
Well, and Darlene was looking fabulous as always. She always is. But yeah, that's the kind of message we want everyone to understand tonight. You know, everybody has a reason why they're out, why they're getting out to vote. And if you haven't contemplated why you should vote, take a moment tonight and think about it. Why should you vote? Why does your voice matter? Why does your vote matter? What do you want to see in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you want your life to be about? All of that is important in this election. And so we hope that hopefully tonight, somebody, one of us, will resonate with you and encourage you and motivate you to get out to vote tomorrow.
Absolutely. I think this gentleman that's coming up next might resonate with a lot of people, because he's going to hit you right there in that spirit. You want to
Pastor Lamar, our spiritual leader and our activist leader. Tell us why from a religious perspective. And I know, being, from, a faith base, you all have to be nonpartisan in your actions. But why is it important to vote?
Well, it goes without saying, it's important to vote in any election, because like everyone's been saying, your vote is your voice, and if you don't vote, you don't matter. I share with them all day long. We have our marches and everything. I say, if you're not a registered voter, don't even come talk to me, because if you're not a registered voter, that means you don't care what goes on. You don't care what goes on jury duty. You don't care what goes on in the courts, because of the fact you have no say so. So when you get locked up, don't come to me and ask me to come down and advocate for you, and you won't do anything for yourself. So every election is important. So we get out there. Matter of fact, me and Al Edmondson, a cut above the rest, we got out, and there was someone else with us, but we got out in our communities and we registered people to vote, because you can talk about voting, they can want to vote, but if they ain't registered, they're not going to vote. So we got out and registered them to vote, and we got them to get absentee ballots, and because of this COVID thing going on, so we had to make sure we was ahead of the gun and we were ready, but just encouraging people to get out to vote.
So, Pastor Lamar, Black churches have historically, they've been sort of the centerpiece for African Americans to get out to vote. And as you just mentioned, with COVID-19 in play, and, I'm sure most of your congregations have not been there in full capacity because of COVID. How have you been able to shift in your role as a spiritual leader to talk about the importance of voting with your constituent members, as well as people throughout the South Side of Columbus?
Well, it's ironic that our simultaneous revival, we had to go virtual with it. But our theme for this simultaneous revival was crisis, the community's need for the church. You know, this entire year, we've been in crisis mode. So, so we've been doing it virtually and whatnot, and just been doing it boots on the ground, just getting the word out there, and really just getting people to look. Okay, you got to get your absentee ballot, you know, because we know what's coming, and we know, you know, we got to maintain our social distancing. So we just been doing it electronically, and really just trying to reach our people through that standpoint.
So what is the consensus of your congregation right now when you're listening to them talk amongst each other? Are they reared up to, you know, go vote? Have they been voting, and are they trusting of the process of voting, especially with the mail-in ballots?
Well, you know, you've got a lot of naysayers. I say about 20% that don't trust the process, you know, and they just see it from the national level. Okay, because the electoral college, they say, well, my vote really don't matter because the electoral college is the one going to do the voting. But I said, there's so much stuff at stake on the local level. You know, all elections are really local because, I mean, you got the commissioners, you got the judges, you got the juvenile judges. So if you're a baby mama going to take you to child support, you're going to go before the juvenile judges. You know, if you get arrested, you know, for a ticket, you're going before the judges. And if you're going to stand before the judge, you got to make sure there's somebody that you're voting for. And if they know that you're voting and they see, and most ones that vote, they come and they canvass our churches. They canvass our churches. And the reason why they canvass them, and I'm not mad at them, because the church is the nucleus of the African-American communities. You know, if it ain't the churches, it's the barbershop. If it ain't the barbershop, it's the beauty salons. But the main place where we meet is the church, because Black people are really people of faith. And they believe what their pastor or their overseer or their bishop, whatever, is going to share with them about the importance of getting out to vote. So it's important that every church and every pastor really just push it and say, look, get away from the naysaying. Okay, get out there and vote and watch things change. The only way we're going to bring change is we get out there and exercise our right to vote.
So, Pastor, there was a question earlier on here, one of our questions about you have all these Black leaders in place, and why haven't things changed? What would be your response as a spiritual leader as to the thoughts of why, even if we have Black leadership in our community, that because of systemic racism or whatever your thoughts are, why things haven't changed, or why we need to get out to vote to make sure that they do change?
Well, it's just like everybody want to blame the pastor when something's not going on. And though it does fall on the pastor's shoulders, the fact is the pastor's only the pastor because he had the sheep, you know, and I'm only as strong as the ones that follow me. If I'm out there and nobody's following me, I'm just taking a long walk. So a Black leader is no stronger than the Black people in the community that's going to support them.
Talk.
Yeah. So you can put me out there to lead, but if I need you to show up at the State House, I need you to show up at City Council, I need you to do something. If you don't do nothing, I'm just making a lot of noise. So I need everyone who voted for me to be there when I ask you to come down to City Council and speak on certain issues. So then everyone in City Council see you, or if I actually come to the State House, I need your presence there. So then they know who I'm representing. So I just think it's just like the leadership, the followership goes along with that. But I also want to add this. In most communities, there is what is called gatekeepers and vanguards.
Well,
you know, a vanguard is one that know they've been elected by the people and they're there to serve the people. Mm-hmm. A gatekeeper just there because, look, I made it and I'm here and I'm going to get comfortable in what I've got, you know, just there not to make no waves. So we just got to understand what kind of leader we putting in there. And then we got to understand once we put the leaders in there, that we got to hold them accountable. And we got to hold them accountable by holding ourselves accountable.
There you go. No, that's real talk. And accountability is really big. And to your point, the way you hold folks accountable is you get out to vote.
Yeah.
All right. So that then, to your point, Pastor, when they're not doing what they said they were going to do or the pledges that they made in voting, now you can go and hold them accountable. And then if the next time they do run again, you can remind folks about what they didn't do. But to
Right.
your point, if you're not in the process, you got to be in the process. You can't be outside of the sandbox throwing the rocks in. You got to be in the sandbox. And the way you get in the sandbox is you got to go and vote. Once you voted, now you in that box. Now you can talk all that smack and do it and say what you want to say about what they have or haven't done. And that's why I'm excited about having folks like you and some of our other guests that have been on today, because this is about how do we hold folks accountable. So it's just one step to go out and vote tomorrow.
Yeah.
The next step is how do we hold our elected officials accountable to do what they said they were going to do?
And we got to be there. We got to be there in their face. When they're at city council or when they're at commissioner's office, you got to be there. You got to be at the state house. And you got to be there and let them see, no, we remember we elected you. We elect you to do something. And they got to see your face, because they see your face. They know, so look, either you're going to be there for them or you're going to be there against them. You know, they the one got to choose, but you got to be present.
Pastor Fred Lamar from Family Missionary Baptist Church. I like the way you put that spin on it. We needed that spirituality. We thank you. We thank you for showing up this evening and giving.
Well, I thank you, and I'm asking all my boys from the back alley, those from the on Broad Street, Main Street. Let's get out there and let's make this different. We got to do this for all those, you know. And I heard Commissioner talking about the Black Lives Matter. We can get out there with all the signs, and I can say to my friends in the suburbs, it don't make no sense in putting that Black Lives Matter sign in your yard if you don't really show it through your voting right now.
That's right.
It's one thing for me to say it because I live in a congressional district that's mainly blacks, and Black lives do matter. But in those suburban districts where you've seen all the Black Lives Matter signs, if you really want to show the Black Lives Matter, then you really vote in making a change where Black lives really will show that they do matter.
Thank you, Pastor Lamar.
Thank you so much.
Thank both of y'all. Thank you for having me. It's an honor for me to be here. And shout out to all the pastors throughout the city on standing up for righteousness. Get out to vote, and I'll see you at the meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Now let's get a word from Columbus's mayor, Mayor Ginther.
Hey neighbors, I'm Mayor Andy Ginther, and I want to encourage you to vote. Your vote is your voice. Make your voice heard.
Yep. Make sure you get out there and vote. You heard it from Mayor Ginther himself. He's a great leader, and great leaders often arise during a crisis, serving as a voice for people who otherwise go unheard. And that's the case with our next guest. I mean, somebody got to do it, and here comes my girl, Miss Jasmine Ayers, to the rescue. She stood against systemic racism, and we want to welcome you to the forum so you can tell us a little bit about Jasmine and what you've been doing as far as your work in the community. Let's hear it.
Thank you so much, y'all. I really appreciate you all having me, especially on the night before the election. I mean, talking to the people is awesome. And since we can't come knock on these doors, we're going to hit you over the radio waves. So I appreciate you having me on.
Sure. Welcome.
So, Jasmine, you know, I think one of the things that I think is important, and you've been a leader on and been a part of, is what's been happening with criminal justice reform. And so you and I have the pleasure of serving on the Civilian Review Board working group that's going to be putting that legislation together. We hope that people will vote for that Civilian Review Board addendum that is on the ballot. It's really important if, in fact, we want to see criminal justice reform. Now, I will say to everyone, you know, all police are not bad. I get it. All right. But we know that the law enforcement was built on a premise a long time ago, which was about keeping the slaves in check. Okay, that's what law enforcement was built on. And whether folks want to admit it or not, systemic racism does exist in the police ranks. And we heard from City Council this past week during the meeting about we have City Council paid $475,000 to a Black officer who had been harassed, who had been called the N-word, who had been threatened by a police officer that is still sitting in the police department, a white police officer today, who was comfortable with making these kinds of remarks about Black officers and still has a job today. That's a whole nother issue. But Tell us why it's important for folks, if they're not thinking about voting, why they should vote because of the criminal justice system reforms that are needed in this country and in this city.
Absolutely. So vote yes on issue 2. Issue 2 is the framework for a civilian review board. So this is the outline, this is the bones. And what it does is it changes our city charter. A city charter is like the city's version of a constitution. And in order to change that, you have to put it to the voters, right? An elected official cannot come in and just change the foundation of what we've set, right? The people of Columbus actually have to make that decision. And so tomorrow we have the opportunity to make the decision to hold police accountable. And what will fill in all of the gaps that are in this legislation is the Civilian Review Board Working Group, which the meetings are public. I welcome you to go on the city's website. You can find it, tune in, write the mayor if there's something that you want to see or something that you don't want to see. But that's where we're making the important decisions about how many terms can you serve? Should people have term limits? And we're also trying to do creative things like make sure that we have a social worker on staff, because so many of these people have been traumatized, and we want to make sure that they have access not only to file a complaint, but to the mental health resources to deal with their trauma. I understand that this isn't going to fix everything. There is not one single solution that is going to right 400 years of wrong, but I do not ever want to take the opportunity away from people who have been hurt and wronged to be able to stand up and say something happened to me and I deserve justice. And a civilian review board provides the opportunity for us to look them in the face and say, I believe you and I trust you and you're right. And we're going to take the full resources of this board to find out what happened to you and make sure that somebody is held accountable.
You know, Jasmine, Columbus, Ohio is one of the larger cities in the nation that does not have a civilian review board. Why do you think it took so long for this to even come to a vote?
The city of Columbus has done a really good job marketing Columbus as the city of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what happens in certain neighborhoods, you never see it. It's walled off, and only certain people and certain neighborhoods really understand or feel what's going on. And I think finally over the last few years with organizations like the People's Justice Project and Be Quick and Surge, we have started to tell those stories and bring them to the front and share things with people that they didn't know what was going on. The people in Columbus care about these things. It's not that they don't care. I just think that many people weren't aware. They saw what was happening on the national news and they didn't understand that Columbus police had, of all the major cities in Ohio, right? Like we have the highest rate of shooting unarmed Black people. And so I think finally when people understood that and they came to the realization there was enough public push to make our politicians make a move on something like this.
So Jasmine, talk about the fact that, you know, you were one of those leaders you were out protesting and that you wanted to make sure that people understood Black Lives Matter and that we need to have accountability for police. Can you talk a little bit about, and that's why I thought it was important for you to be here, to talk about the fact that how do you now take protest and now go and vote? Why is that important that we did the protest? Now, why is it important to vote?
Right. So this is one piece in our puzzle. This is one tool in the toolbox. The biggest election in Central Ohio of my lifetime is happening tomorrow with the Franklin County prosecutor's race. In 18 years, Ron O'Brien has not once I'll take that back. In 18 years, only one police officer has been indicted for shooting somebody and they were Black. So we need Gary Tyack in office to make sure that police officers are held accountable, right? He is also the person that investigates fraudulent activity at the State House, right? Like there is a super important role about what the future of criminal justice looks like in Central Ohio. And we absolutely need people to get out and vote for that. And just the last thing I'm going to say is as a grown person, you would never let anybody come and tell you how to raise your family, where to live, where you can start a business. Politicians make decisions every single day about your life, right? They decide whether or not your property taxes, the money you worked hard for, goes to a tax abatement to a wealthy corporation, or whether or not that money gets reinvested in your kid's school so that your daughter can have new computers. And so these elections have consequences, and we have to hold them accountable.
I think that was very, well said. And being an activist, one of our up and coming activists, in this community, I think it was important that especially our young professionals and young folks understand exactly what you said, Jasmine, that this vote and your vote has larger and long-term consequences. It's not just about Trump versus Biden. It really is about the local down ballot votes that will have an impact, and why, to your point, it's important to get out to vote tomorrow. And so I just thank you for your continued activism and your leadership. I think it's important, again, police reform is important in this country. And the criminal justice system has been one of those social justice issues that we now have an opportunity, family, to really deal with and begin to hold folks accountable. That's why it's so important. We don't want to see a George Floyd in our community. We don't want to see a Breonna Taylor in our community. We don't want to see our Ahmaud Arbery happen in our community. But if we don't get out to vote, there could be that possibility. And so how do we go out to vote tomorrow to make sure that it doesn't happen?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, y'all.
Jasmine, you are amazing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us tonight. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you for all that you do. And now let's hear a special message from Bishop Timothy Clark, leader of the First Church of God, and then Erica Clark Jones, CEO of the Adam H. of Franklin County.
This is Bishop. To be involved in voting this year, you have one more day today, Monday, for early voting, and then tomorrow is election day. Listen, T.I. said it best. Your vote is your mic, so get in the booth. Let your voice be heard. We do not want one vote wasted, not one voice not heard. Vote. It is your responsibility.
In addition to all the important candidate races on the ballot this election season, there's a very important issue that deserves every Franklin County voter's attention. My name's Erica Clark Jones, and I serve as the CEO of Adam H. I grew up right here in Columbus, in Berwick, and I'm asking you to support the good work of Adam H. All of us have had a family member or friend or coworkers battle addiction or mental illness. Adam H. provides the safety net our loved ones so desperately need when problems like these arise. Did you know that Adam H. provides services for about 30,000 young people each year in all 16 Franklin County school districts? We do. Because we at Adam H. believe, as many parents do, that addressing substance abuse and mental health problems early on is critical. Issue 24 is the Adam H. levy. Investing in our community should be a priority. That's why I urge you to join me, the Columbus Dispatch, the Baptist Ministerial Alliance, Columbus NAACP, the Columbus Urban League, and so many others by voting yes on Issue 24. And remember to vote your entire ballot. Issue 24 is the last item on the ballot, and it's the last and best thing you can do this election to support the well-being of the residents of Franklin County. Be well, stay safe, vote yes on Issue 24.
What a great message once again from Bishop Timothy Clark and also Erica Clark Jones. So, Stephanie, I've been hearing a lot of chatter. Emotions are on high. Things are happening. About militia groups or people showing up to polls trying to intimidate. What are your feelings on that right now?
You know what, as we, round the bend to, election day, there was a group of us, collaboration that came together to put out a community message, Divine, because at the end of the day, this community still has to thrive, and we all still have to work together.
Yeah.
And there is some concern that there could be, depending upon how this election, evolves tomorrow and turns out, that there could be some entities who are or will feel more disenfranchised or disenfranchised again, and that there could be some negative things that happen. My hope is that we will stand together in this democracy in a unified way. Even though many of us, Black and Brown people, have felt oppressed, we know that violence is not the answer, and Dr. Martin Luther King showed us that, in spite of all of the things that many endured during the civil rights movement. And so we have to be mindful of the fact that this is a democracy, and that as Black people and Brown people, that as what did Michelle Obama say? We're gonna go high when they go low.
They go low. That's
Yeah,
right.
we're not going to go low. And so that's why it's important for people to get out to vote, because if you get out to vote, then hopefully it's going to be a vote that is in our favor, and we won't have to resort to anything in a negative way. Or if those negative forces do present themselves, Divine, we don't have to be a part of it. I want to go back to really quickly about issue 24. With Erica Clark Jones, because we know that this pandemic has really exacerbated those of us who have mental health addiction issues in our community. People can't get to meetings. They cannot get their meds. We saw what happened in Philadelphia this past week, where the young man who was having a mental health issue was again gunned down by police. Issue 24, I have voted already. It is the last issue on the ballot. Do not get ballot fatigue, and do not go down and vote for issue 24. We know a lot of us, and I don't care who's on this tonight, we know we got family members that have drug and alcohol issues. We know we have family members that have mental health issues, and we don't like to talk about it. This is the levy that will ensure that our people are taken care of. Secondly, COVID has done a number on us, sheltering in place, not having social contact with people. Folks are depressed, they're home, alone, all of the negative stuff is going on. Issue 24 is going to be that safety net for our community. We have to get out to vote. And this is one of those, if you're talking about voting for your lives, voting for one of your family members, this is one of those issues we have to get out and vote on for Divine.
Yes, this is one of those elections that we are going to be reading about in the history books in years to come. This is extremely important, and you definitely want to be a part of the cause. And that is why we brought this forum to you this evening, to educate you. For the questions that came in, we are very thankful. We hope that if you have any more questions, you can still reach out to Stephanie Hightower and myself. We want to thank everyone that came on board tonight, including Commissioner Kevin Boyce for his words, Senator Sherrod Brown, also to the Young Adult Chair for the NAACP, Stanley Gates, to Pastor Lamar, also to Mayor Ginther for his kind words, the crew over at NBC4, of course to Jasmine Ayers for blessing us, and also to Bishop Clark and Erica Clark Jones, and of course a special thank you to my good friend, my sister, Stephanie Hightower, for putting this whole thing together to get the word out. And I think that you got the point, ladies and gentlemen. Get out the vote. If you have not voted already and you've showed up in record numbers, we appreciate you. Make sure you get out the vote, okay? My name is Divine Martino, Magic 95.5, Stephanie Hightower. We want you to have a great evening and make sure that you vote tomorrow. And we're going to leave you with a voting message from a few of our friends.
Thank you, Divine.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Chloe
and Hallie.
And why is it important to vote? So everyone around the world can hear our voice and make sure our voice is heard.
Yes, we are the change. We are the future. So go vote.
vote.
Vote. Hey, what's up? It's Yabez. Listen, we don't have time to waste nor votes to waste. Go and vote. All right, figure out your plan before Election Day. Call your friends and family. Make sure your voice is heard. If not for you, at least for the next generation.
Yo, what up, world? It's the Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon here. I vote because I understand that I have the freedom, I have the power to change policy, laws, and it's more important than ever for not only for your community, but for people of black and brown color. So, Columbus, Ohio, I challenge you to remember that one vote is better than no vote.
I like to think about all of those people who came before us. I think of those like Fannie Lou Hamer, the youngest of 20 children. She was a sharecropper, had very little education, but loved to read. She pushed herself to learn to read. And she took beating after beating, and she fought so much for people to be able to secure the right to vote. And I just think what a shame it is that many people would sit at home and not vote. So I try to make every election municipal and really get involved, not just the general election, because it's so important, Jennifer. I think people get out, do their part, cast a ballot.
And I love that you're thinking about the past, I'm thinking about the future. For me, I vote for my children. I want to leave a better world for them. I want to make sure that they have as much opportunity as everyone else to succeed and excel and live their very best life. So that's why I vote, because I want to leave them in the best hands possible.
What's up, Columbus? It's your boy, Ralph Tresvan. And I vote because I can and because it's important. Remember, one vote is better than no vote.
Hey, it's your J Divine Martino from Magic 95.5. Happy election 2020. Have you voted yet? If not, then what are you waiting on, honey? This is one of the most important, prolific elections of our time. Do your due diligence. Do your duty. Do your God-given right. Make sure that you vote. Yes, Tuesday's election day. Make sure that your voice is heard.
Hey, this is MKXYZ, and this is why it's important that you vote. Because our black, brown, and queer communities depend on our voices to fight for change. Black Lives Matter.
What's poppin'? It's your man DJ, Mr. King, Power 107.5, 106.3, reminding everybody to get out November 3rd and make sure that your one vote is counted and your one voice is heard. Listen, this is probably the biggest election of our entire lifetime. So, I need you to thug out them long lines. I need you to brave the bad weather if it happens. Whatever, make sure you do what you gotta do to make sure that your vote counts, alright? We counting on you. Yes, you. Power 107.5, 106.3. Make that vote count.
Hey, what's up? It's the Icy Girl Sweetie, and I feel like it's important to vote because in order for there to be change, there has to be participation. So it's important for the young people to go out there and vote because you guys do make up 40% of the voting population. So stop being lazy, register, and please go vote.
Vote as if your life depended on it, because it does. I don't care if you vote red, if you vote blue. I don't care if you vote early or if you wait until November 3rd. You got to go out and do it. You got to. This is a B. You got to vote. If you don't vote, you can't complain.
Hey neighbors, I'm Mayor Andy Ginther, and I want to encourage you to vote. Your vote is your voice. Make your voice heard.